are watching this later, hi. Everyone is in another live stream because this one didn't work. So we opened a new one. So hi everyone. I now need to find a way. Hi, who's here? Who's here? What a day. 2 people are here. Yay! Honestly, today you can't hear me. No reason why you shouldn't be able to hear me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hold the line. Can you hear me? Anyone hear me? Why is YouTube not working today? Can you hear me? I might go and get my headphones. You can enjoy the beautiful scenery behind me. Hi, can you hear me? This was a total cluster F. I'm so glad that you guys are here. I hope people who got Katie, if you're here, thank you so much for sharing it. That was really nice of you to share that on your Facebook. And now everyone's going to go to the old one, which didn't work. There was a Facebook and a YouTube glitch. So thanks. Let me show you. It's actually, look, it's a little dress with like pom-poms. And it has like it's a reversible dress. So it's by Roberta Roller Rabbit, which is a really cute brand. I think it's from America. I don't wear enough dresses. Can you hear me okay? I might put these headphones on, but then I'm going to look daft. Can you hear me okay without them? This is like so profesh. Thanks, Elle. It's a cute dress. So welcome to the postponed, delayed, but still here YouTube update about why is everything going wrong. No, really, it's about the footpaths that went wrong. So tell me in the comments if you can't hear me so well, but let me first update you about Bill, who has reached adolescence, and boys, you know what they're like. We remember teenage boys. So Bill is having his cojones removed next Thursday, and I think he's somehow understands that might be happening because now he seems very interested in lady dogs and keeps running off if he thinks there's one around. He's very biddable, good boy. We went to lots of training classes and we get on very well, Bill and I. We are good pals and he listens and I'm good to him and he's good to me, you know. The last week, he has been obsessed with finding lady dogs. And I will let him out of the car to go to let him into a house. And I'll look down and he's gone and he's run somewhere. And I spent ages finding him. So tonight he ran all across fields because mum said that a couple of days ago he'd bumped into a lady dog down by the quarries. And he'd been very interested in the lady dog. And she wasn't very interested in him. But he'd remembered. So the minute I let him out of the car at my mum's, we went for a short walk. Boom, he was gone. We found him a while later in the place, like far away, where he had bumped into a lady dog. And I guess he was just seeing if she was still there. So she was not, and I was very cross. So he's now downstairs and we're not speaking. But that's why I was a bit late. It doesn't matter that I was a bit late because YouTube didn't work. But we're here now. So thank you for letting me update you on those things. The footpath. Last time we spoke, had some grand plans, and I was going to, just in case you weren't aware, but I'm sure you were, hike the trails and interview the people and talk about the roots that live above the soil that connect all our towns and villages together, where we've hunted, married, met, worshipped, traded along through millennia. And I was going to visit incredible Neolithic sites, Nine Maidens, quoits, the standing stones down at Lamorna, and I was going to take myself along a little bit of coast path, but mostly I was going to try to then use that as a conduit to take me inland in Cornwall and across a network of footpaths. I'm going to interrupt myself now briefly. Do we have a way of directing anybody else to this little live stream if they want to come in? I'm sure you're on top of that. Is my incredible apprentice in there in the back end, figuring everything out for me. Thank you, Um, and also fluent in Spanish, and she complimented by cojones. Thank you. Gracias. So that was the plan. Other amazing apprentice Robin had put together an incredible research document, well, tons of them, with local people to interview. For example, miners who left Crofty when it closed and then hadn't seen each other since the mine closed. And we were going to interview them together, meeting for the first time over a pint in a pub in Red Roof, or in a back garden barbecue, where they could chat about their memories of being in Crofty and in the mines and what that was like and what mining meant to Cornish people and what it still means if the mines reopen. Crofty's looking for investment, etc., to reopen. Got a couple of historians to talk about. Hi, Amy. Got a couple of historians to talk about Poltesco and the pilchard mine industry, the serpentine industry, and how things were moved around Cornwall, especially from the Lizard Peninsula, because, of course, we echo ancient times today in that we have the backbone of the A30 that takes people, second homeowners potentially, if you're in here, no bad, but straight through down to Penzance, and the things that spur off of the A30 are easy to get to. The North Coast, super easy to get to. Truro, easy to get to, and potentially Falmouth is a little more arduous to get to, but not too bad. But when it comes to the Lizard Peninsula, for example, even through hundreds and hundreds of years ago, when there was still active trade and common land and farmers and people needing to move product around, Helston is like the bottle stop in the top of the Lizard Peninsula. And once you get past that down towards the Lizard itself, the Lizard at the very end village, that entire peninsula has no framework of roads historically that needed any access in and out. Helston was the stannery town where they stamped the tin later, an important, very important, very ancient town. But below that was the wild badlands with highwaymen and footpaths, which were highwaymen without horses who were on foot bandits. Robbing, murdering, pillaging, and all the villagers down there who were bringing in pilchards or mining serpentine, digging it out, quarrying it, not mining it, would need to find different ways to get their things out onto the main artery to take it up to London for trade. Take the serpentine to Italy, where there are huge, beautiful fireplaces made of serpentine stone from the Lizard Peninsula. So I was really interested in walking these routes, talking to archaeologists, talking to people whose families have been there for many, many generations, who have connections to that pilchard industry, when the pilchards just one day never, ever came again. One season, they did. I was learning that the pilchard hordes makes them sound like zombies. The pilchard hordes would arrive. The swarm, the what do you call lots of fish? Shoal. The zombie swarm of pilchards would come up from the Scillies towards Land End, and it would be a mile wide, coming up all of these roiling, boiling seas full of pilchards, and they would be driven in by the hewers, who was the name of the people who would stand on the cliffside, like in Cadgwith. If you've been to Cadgwith and walked up the side of Cadgwith, there's that little building that's now kind of closed, but was believed to be a place where the hewers would call that they'd seen the shoals of pilchards and send the men out to drive them into the coves to be scooped up. And then they'd be pressed, all the oil pressed out of them. It would be stinking down there in Cadgwith, Poltesco, all along that coast. And then they would be in little short fat barrels and sent overseas as delicacies. But one season they never came. And everybody was looking off the cliffs for this shoal of pilchards to come, because everybody relied on it. And they never came again in the same way, ever, season after season. They just never came. So they had to pivot and be used for different things like serpentine, all these in buildings and pieces of industry. But all of this stuff fascinated me, and I wanted to go and walk the paths that they would have traded along, talk to the people, etc. And from the very first day, which I did a shakedown hike, a couple of days from St Agnes, over from St Agnes Beacon towards the Bizzo Trail, and then Carnmarth, and then beyond over to this way, Falmouth, where I live. From the very first day, from the very first hour, I got lost. Even though I had my OS maps, I couldn't make sense because the footpath, the green footpath that Robin routed all of our routes on, would disappear. Sign would be ripped down, private no entry, especially on the north coast in the beginning. I was finding that these ways that are ours to use as a right to roam respectfully and within the bounds of good conduct were in many instances gone, disappeared, repurposed, rerouted casually by somebody who may have bought a new home or wanted to expand their garden and had just kind of pushed the sign in a different direction. It was very frustrating. And in the first day, I encountered disappeared paths, ripped down sign, lots of private no entry, keep out, angry dog, etc. Don't come down here. But then I could still find ways around. I encountered what I thought I would, which was expected, which is when we had included a genuine lost path section, maybe a mile, maybe half a mile, to the OS footpath route. We expected that to be rough or hard to find and hard to navigate through because the lost paths are a map you can find on the Ramblers website. Ramblers have done a wonderful job of raising awareness and trying to maintain momentum in taking ancient maps or old maps, even not ancient, and putting on this interactive map where the lost paths are, where people aren't walking them, where they're really genuinely a right of way or a right to roam, but are not on the latest iteration of a map. Because the latest iteration of a map, which I hadn't realized, can leave off something from the last one, and that kind of left off something from the one before. Because there are so many routes that often the most popular, well trodden, regulated routes are the ones that are on the map. I'm not quite sure of the law of or the rules which OS follows for which which paths to include, but there are some lost ones that don't make it on. So we'd included a little lost one on every one, and the Ramblers are encouraging people to walk lost paths in their area and then register which ones could be really useful, encourage people to re-walk them, and then put them in the formal, very arduous and bureaucratic document to have them reinstated on proper maps. Because if we don't, there was the 2026 law that said that if people didn't re-register them, they'd devolve back into private ownership. They got rid of that a few months ago because of an outcry, people covering up footpaths, private landowners, some farmers, so that no one would find them, so that by January 2026, no one will have had them. So they just went back to their own land. But that's been got rid of. So I expected to find the lost paths gone, and lots of them were gone. I expected to find some trace of them, but often there was no trace whatsoever of these lost paths. In fact, they were often in people's gardens, surrounded by hedges, no entry. Please find alternative route. Frustrating enough. Other things I found on my footpath hike in those first 2 days were actually a very unfriendly feeling little community that I ended up walking through next to on a road that's not far from my home in Falmouth, but that I'd never had reason to walk through because it's a dead end road that only a footpath leads from, which was triple gated and chained with barbed wire as well. But there was a pen with 3 badly treated, malnourished dogs covered in their own poop. I think I mentioned that on a different story, I'm not sure, which made me cry. And when I tried to look at them, I was met with very hostile gazes and glares from the gang of caravans that had been put about on this at the end of this no entry dead end lane. And the dogs, there was a collie, there was another dog, were in incredibly poor repair and very sad in a tiny pen covered in poop, and that made me absolutely devastated, but also made me realize how much we don't see when we travel our usual main roads, for good and for ill. But I thought it'll probably all work out okay, and I will probably be able to still navigate most of the route. So week 2, oh yeah, there was electric fencing on that second day with Mum, and there are handles where you can lift up the electric fences and get across, but some of them didn't have handles. And the one with the rather amusing reel where Mum said it wasn't electrified, and I said okay, and then touched it and genuinely got a big old shock. I cut myself swearing out at Mum. It was comedy, but not appropriate from the reel. But we did encounter quite a lot of that stuff of making it extra difficult to get across. But then I did some filming for a TV pitch with a director, producer friend of mine, and a great cameraman. And so the next week, we incorporated the hiking with the filming, which was quite stressful for everyone because I had an idea about where I wanted to walk that week, which we still did a lot of, but we had to like jump little bits of in between walking because we had so much wealth of stuff to film and try and hike and lost paths to find on either side. So that was sometimes fabulous. I mean, it was a lot fabulous to be talking about the history. An old friend of mine, Dave Williams, did a lot of back research as well, and provided us with incredible bites of information we wouldn't have otherwise known about Goonhilly Downs and standing stones and prehistoric sites and all sorts of other cool stuff we talked about. We went to Goonhilly, got into the nerve centre of Goonhilly, looking at the maps and how the antenna, dealing with satellites around Mars and stuff. It was like, wow, blowing my mind. And Goonhilly sits in this incredible Goonhilly Downs, which is an area of outstanding natural beauty. So you have the juxtaposition of this cutting edge space tech, aeronautical, I don't know, like just network going on where the antenna beaming out across the planet into the vortex. Very scientific. And then it's surrounded by scrubland that's been there for millennia and used for millennia as, you know, spiritual worship sites and rocks organized so they represent the stars and places where maybe sacrifices happen, and huge leaning and Neolithic standing stone prehistoric barrows surround Goonhilly Earth Station. And I just think that juxtaposition is incredible. Oh, we've got a question from Lay. How do people know what lost paths will be useful if they can't be used to see? It's a really good question, which is why the Ramblers have the map. So you can put in your postcode and you can see around you where lost paths are. Some of them will be walked, but not on current maps. Some of them will have not been walked for 30 years. And you might see an echo of them in how the flowers grow across that bit of field, in that there'll be, I'm only speaking from my archaeology degree, in that you can see landform and you can see, if you look at how things grow, where there were previous shapes on the soil, where people had worn away a pathway. And sometimes you can see an echo of that, but then you're not sure if that was potentially last year's cattle route, where the cows are going in and out of the field in that direction. Sometimes if you have an higher view, you can see where the path might have used to have been, where there would be passage. And if you look at the shape of the hedgerows, you might be able to get an idea of where there's been some passage over that area. But it's really hard. So you use the Ramblers maps, and I don't think they're trying to reinstate every lost path. What they're trying to do is to figure out which ones still have use in communities or historical significance, or that could link together areas that are important for communities. And they want you to choose those routes which you think are significant and mark on there in a different, like, number system or quite simple color system, which ones forget about it and which ones, hey, this one is worth preserving because, I don't know, it links Pendennis Castle on this forgotten pathway exactly to X, Y, and Z on the headland. Nobody knows that that's a public right of way, so nobody uses it. But wow, if we started reusing it and took it back out of that person's garden, or got access across that person's garden who built the garden 10 years ago, then that would be an incredible route with this incredible view and this incredible history behind it. Depends how much, how overgrown they are and how repurposed they are. Sometimes you can get on an OS map and find an old OS map and find a right to Rome footpath, and you come up to the end of it and it's a housing estate because it's just been built over and it will never be a footpath again. So yeah, it's tricky, but the Ramblers website will be able to give more information if you're interested in looking in your little local area. So the filming was fantastic and ended at Flora Day, which was so wonderful and so full of history itself. And I talked to lots of amazing people, interviewed quite a lot of people, had a spingo, jolly good times. Took a rest, went back out on the trails last week for a whole week of hoping to go from Helston down through the Penrose estate. I was talking about how it's been inherited by somebody who would have previously been known as an illegitimate son who had no idea that he was going to be the inheritor, really. He had some inkling, I think, but couldn't get a DNA test, that he was going to inherit Penrose house. He was a care worker, not so well off, and then suddenly had inherited this huge estate and lots of wealth. So I walked through the Penrose estate talking about all that. Lots of my YouTube vlogs will have lots of history nuggets, local community nuggets of information, talking about Low Bar and whether it was ever a clear entry passageway from Low Beach where they could take trade up to Helston, as it was such an important stannery town and it's been silted up and is now a lake, or whether there was never really access there and it never met Helston. It was never a trade channel for Helston. So there's lots of debate about things like that. So that was my route from Helston through down Penrose Estate to Low Bar, and then along the coast path until I could jump back in down in West Penwith, kind of down in the wild west of Cornwall, and get off the coast path and head inland. And I did head inland a few times to look for certain particular beautiful wells or holy sites, which was great. And the coast path is always clear, beautiful, gorgeous, no problem navigating the coast path. But the minute you try to go inland, you start to face some problems. So from Lamorna Cove, I went inland to try to get to the Merry Maidens. Oh my goodness. I think that's still to go up. Is that YouTube vid up? The Merry Maidens blew my mind. These standing stone circle in just maybe 15 minutes walk in from the Cove of Lamorna, and you can get to it. It's quite clear. But the standing stone sign is on its side, on the side of the road, the footpath sign. So I was using my app for maps. Mind-boggling. I never knew it was there. Had absolutely no idea it was there. And I've never felt quite so wowed by something in my local area that I've seen. Maybe in school they take you to see standing stones or whatever, and you're like, Neolithic, whatever. Even as a little history spod, I was still like, it's just a rock. But this was like the sunset was coming down, the light was coming across the stones. These stone circle have been there for however many millennia. It's meant to be 9 women, women dancing. So the story goes that women were dancing and having so much fun, and 2 pipers were playing for them. And these women were just free dancing in the evening on a Saturday evening. Although it would have been a Friday evening potentially for the Sabbath, because the Sabbath for some people is on Saturday. But anyway, they danced after midnight, and because they danced and were having fun, 1 minute after midnight into the holy day, they were all turned to stone and remain there in a circle all these many years later. And the pipers are also turned to stone, and they're 2 huge standing stones about 200 yards away in a different field. I don't think that's true. I'd like to think that if women were dancing after midnight, they'd just be allowed to carry on. But it's amazing what you can find off the beaten path, off the coast path. So that was a real success. That was great. I felt buoyed up and excited that the footpath thing was going to work. Sorry, I just rang the keyboard. My excitement. I'm just sorry. Just going to take a little rain check to read some cool comments. Doing the loop back to, farmyard fills with cow and cow poop. I just slid and skidded all over a load of cow poop the other day, for sure, through a cow field, through a yard, boggy field chased by cows. All of this is true. I turn to stone to midnight these days. Yeah, but only because we're getting old, Layla, not because somebody said we couldn't dance. We don't turn to stone. We just call A to B taxis to take us home. So that was fab, but then, trying to get from Lamorna inland through footpaths down to down and around the end of Land's End was really tricky, because I was trying to do it just inland from the coast path. There were green footpaths, hard to get on, road walking and busy traffic around these tiny tight bends. And then there was stiles where clearly you're allowed access. I mean, it's unequivocal, because there's a stile in the hedge that's been made. Razor wire, barbed wire around the stile, so that when I was trying to get up and around it with the dog, it was sliced my ankle, sliced my pack, sliced the dog's lead. And in the end, I had to give up. And then I had to road walk more to find a further way around to get back to the other side of that stile where I was allowed access. And then that continued, really. That was the vein that I was facing. Now, there were ways around. I'm not saying that all footpaths inland in Cornwall are blocked. And I'm not saying all farmers are trying to stop you from crossing footpaths. And I'm not saying that they're not kept well or that every council doesn't care if people rip down signs and that everyone's trying to shield footpaths. I'm not. There is a way round, but usually that way round is on the road between really well trodden footpaths that everybody uses to walk their dogs, for example, or that leads to a lovely lookout spot or down to a cove to the footpath, to the coast path. That's all well and good. But there isn't just one well trodden next to a village path down to the coast. That's not how our network of right to roam and trails should work. We should be able to follow green, sorry, making you seasick. We should be able to follow on the maps the green footpaths, which mean they're our right of way. And when we meet blockages and we have to pivot, go backwards around a road which is dangerous with a little dog on a lead, it doesn't encourage people to use the countryside. It exasperates people. And I think there's just this cyclical issue, which is especially after lockdown or through lockdown, when people found their place in the countryside and in the outdoors because it was a really challenging, difficult, upsetting time, and everybody wanted to find something that brought them peace, and going outdoors was a big part of that. But through that, and if you're in Cornwall, like I am, and lots of you are, we saw people abandoning tents on the coast path and in fields, leaving bottles, bags, waste, full backpacks. They just left it all and went home. And I guess maybe people think, well, they have street cleaners that come through after a night out in town and pick up all the McDonald's wrappers. Fucking McDonald's. So maybe someone just does that on the trails, like the country's a theme park, and the countryside is like another area of Disneyland where someone will come with a street cleaner in the morning and pick everything up because it's like the Truman Show and it's not real. Well, I understand if farmers want to gape things off and not let people pass or not let people on their land because, and I'm sure you know, that there is, if dogs foul on fields and cows who are pregnant, ingest it, it can cause miscarriage in pregnant cows. I think that's right. I think, and I was taught that by a farmer, so I hope that's, if I'm wrong, forgive me. But dogs worry sheep, and if they're pregnant, that can cause them to miscarry or kill lambs. Dogs do what dogs do. People leave gates open. People litter and push crisp packets in Cornish hedges because they're eating their lunch and they just shove it in the wall behind them. People chuck banana skins and orange peel on trails when actually those things don't biodegrade easily at all. And they're not from this soil. So you shouldn't throw things into the soil, even if you think it's a fruit or a veg, if it's not from this soil, because it's highly likely that this soil won't contain the chemicals that will biodegrade that thing because it's an alien thing. It doesn't come from it. It won't easily become a part of it again, soil wise. Some of this is just because people don't know. Some of it's because people don't care. So now there seems to be some kind of resistance between people who want to use the footpaths and people who want to not let people go through their private footpaths because everybody is feeling like they've been hard done by, whether it's through lockdown or whatever. You're not looking after our land properly, or I bought my new home and I don't want to see people walking through the end of my garden, so I'm going to make it really tricky. And other people are like, well, I want to go out in the outdoors, it's my right, and they're going to be annoyed when they can't do that. So I'm interested in what you guys think, in how you ever resolve this issue, because eventually I came off trail because I was walking many, many miles, but I was getting nowhere. So as the crow flies, I'd be getting nowhere, but I'd be walking 15, 16 miles with my pack, going backwards for a mile, forwards for 2, round a road for a mile, backwards again, forwards for 3 miles. So I'd maybe go forward 7 miles when I was supposed to do 15 to get to where I was supposed to camp. I don't advocate or support wild camping in this area on my channels, on here, on Instagram, or anywhere else. I don't disagree with wild camping. I love wild camping. I would love for people to be able to wild camp. I will not do it publicly and talk about it, and I will not promote it because if we set the standard that it's okay to wild camp on the coast path, where people tell you we don't want you to wild camp on the coast path, the National Trust says, please, Southwest Coast Path, please don't wild camp on the coast path because it's farmers' land, or it's people who are kind enough to let us go through their land with the coast path, or the National Trust like it. Yes, Kelly, I will get your question in a second. I see that one, sorry. So I don't promote it, although I love it. And if you can do it, the rules are clear, even if it's illegal or not, not supposed to be done. You set up late when there's not a lot of traffic going by, and you leave really early before traffic begins to come past again, and you leave no trace, literally no trace you were there, as if nothing ever happened. No ashes from a little fire you decided to have, no, if you can help it, beaten down grass, no branches snapped off because you wanted to cook in your wood burner. Nothing. And then it's fine, isn't it, if you want to wild camp and it's like nobody ever knew you were there. But because it has been so popular here in Cornwall, and the National Trust and the landowners begged people, please don't do it anymore. I couldn't do it. So what that meant was I couldn't just whack up my tent in the corner of a field knowing I could do it at 10 p.m. and be gone by 6 a.m. and no one would ever know. Because if I'm talking about it online, I want to advocate for what I believe in. So I ended up not having anywhere to stay, being turned away by people. Campsites were full already, especially around St Ives and Carbis Bay, walking there. No, no, no. Already rammed with camper vans, no space. And hostels were up for sale. Little B&Bs up for sale that would previously be stayed in when I did the coast path. Because I guess, everyone wants to sell their homes down here at the moment because you can sell it for quite a lot of money. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so I gave up. I didn't give up. I just learned what I needed to learn, which was there's a problem and it's tricky and it needs to be tackled. So I felt despondent and disappointed in the last couple of days, like, I came off the CDT last year. That was my huge big dream because, well, for all sorts of reasons that you'll know if you followed me. Legitimate, genuinely valid, important reasons, and I wouldn't change it now if I could go back again. It was the right thing to do. And then this path hike, Robin spent so long researching it and doing such a great job. I've got reams and reams of research we've put together, historical, cultural stuff on all these parts of Cornwall. And I just felt like, well, shit. Another thing that didn't friggin' go to plan, despite really good planning. I'm fit as a fiddle at the moment, I'm in good fettle, ready to hike, ready to do miles, and it didn't happen. So it's disappointing, but it's given me something to learn and to talk about and to write about. So that's where I'm at. And I kind of decided to pivot and to, over the next couple of weeks, bit by bit, to do a number of really beautiful day hikes in Cornwall and use Robin's and my incredible research and history and still speak to some amazing people. Because I've got loads of great footage that Emma's going to be putting up over the next week or two of the 2 weeks. Fascinating, beautiful stuff. But I think bringing to you on YouTube and Instagram some of the beautiful day hikes in Cornwall that are less on the obvious, they're not the most obvious routes, but to also share with you the background of those routes, the trade, the history, the culture, in docs that can link to the YouTube channel, or just a lovely film of them. I think that will be a good way to salvage what the plan was. And I don't feel like it's anything that I should feel bad about, but I do think it's given me stimulus to think about how I can raise a bit of awareness about the footpaths or begin to do a few things that aren't confrontational that can help. I don't know, there'll be a way. I always believe that these things are resolved with education at the very core, at the very root, in our schools, chatting to kids, helping them understand why things are important. That's why I wanted to do the interviews and the chats and go into schools, because if you understand why the footpath around and the countryside around where you live is vital to, why are you living next to a creek or a river? Why is this settlement this village you live in here? Oh, because it was how we traded things in and out. And maybe your ancestor was integral in this trade, and maybe they were integral in some, landscaping thing along this area. And the reason these hedgerows look like this is because your ancestor from that village over there built Cornish hedges all the way along to this village here. And now when you walk along it, it's not just, oh, it's a bloody hedge. It's, oh my God, so and so's great 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 grandfather actually built this hedge. No way. And then you care and then you protect it, because suddenly it's not just someone else's bit of something, it's part of your very fabric of your community and your village and your life. So if we don't make meaning of things, then they don't matter. And if they don't matter, we let them become someone else's problem. And if we do that, then we lose it all. So I think there must be a way to engage people in in the re-loving of our countryside, not just for the sake of it, because environment and we should, and nature's important, but because it's part of us. We are not separate from our environment. We weren't just ported in, were we? To exist in this lifetime. We are the product of the agriculture, the landforms, the landmass, the shapes, the sea, the passage, the trade of all of the things around us. That's why and how we're here. The very reason we're here. And if our ancestors don't come from here, then there's even more reason to care about how we're here, because that is through ships coming in or connections with other countries and other cultures through trade that began through what we found on our doorsteps: our fish, tin, our copper, our serpentine stone. They were our windows into the wider world through footpaths, originally, carriages, etc. um Justin, I am good at talking. I know I haven't breathed in for a bit, my lover, but hopefully it's been interesting. Justin, you better be watching on a separate device, please, to up my watch hours. Yeah. So basically, I love footpaths. I'm pissed right off. I couldn't do it round here. But I will. I think I'm going to write a little ebook of day hikes you can do with footpaths, with like transport guides and stuff attached. No one steal that idea. I've got a log who's watching. Um, as if it's not already been done. So yeah, that's that. Also, other thing is, the dog's a pain in the ass to argue with. No, he's fine, but he got tired quickly because he's small. So I had to get rid of him for bits. Trying to sleep with the dog in the tent. Um, yeah, don't ever bother trying to do that, because every 2 minutes he wanted to be in a different place, and he was out the sleeping bag, out the quilt, round the top, letting all the cold air in. Then he'd just sit and stare at me, and then he'd go down the end of the foot box, and then he'd be up and out again. Yeah, nightmare. Don't take a puppy camping. Learn that too. So I also have decided to postpone my Tour de Mont Blanc hike in June, because I'm putting it into September instead. If anybody wants to come on the Tour de Mont Blanc in September, let's just go. Because I have other things to focus on. My second retreat is coming out in June. My first retreat was like such a huge success, a brilliant sellout, oversubscribed, couldn't fit everybody on. June, I really cleverly put it in the same month as the Jubilee weekend, which I had not factored in. So people are super interested in September and want to book for September's retreat. June, we've got half booked, maybe a little bit more. Still people very interested, but it hasn't got the same surge. So I want to make sure, even if it's a smaller group, that I can give everyone 10,000% focus and really give them an amazing experience. Especially if it's a slightly smaller group, I can give them even more of me. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. If there are spaces, so if you know anyone or you want to share the word for me, that would be very lovely. And then also, I'm writing curriculum for my online courses. My online courses are like become a backpacking badass. So it is like a 101, 101, 111. No, that's an emergency number. It's everything you need to know about that I've learned from the beginning of getting ready to through hike to now. So all the little things you never think of until you are stuck on a mountain and didn't know that you needed to do that thing. All the little tips, tricks from all of these amazing Triple Crown hikers I've hiked with around the world, to get you ready for either a through hike at the most extreme, or basically a 2 or 3 night camp out somewhere, trip, Cotswold Way, Camino de Santiago, whatever it might be, explaining how kit's used, what is kit, the variety of different ways you can cook, tents, tarps, how you look after your feet, personal hygiene, everything you can possibly imagine that you might need to know. Mindset, physicality, mobility, apps, navigation, route planning, periods, pooping in the woods. Yeah, every single thing under the sun is going into a series of courses that I'm creating and putting up online onto a learning platform that will be attached to my website. People quite believe in it. So I was given a little bit of funding to local kind of super fast broadband Cornish startup funding, just for the tech end, just for someone to help me build a learning portal, because that's beyond me in every realm. So I'm going to use June to finish filming and writing that, begin to bring it to market and to share it with everyone. I really believe in it. I think it's so much value, and there's nothing quite like that at the moment. Please equally don't tell anyone about it yet. But also tell them about it when I'm ready. it's nearly done, so it's all good. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. Justin, I'm still speaking. Sorry. Yeah, so the footpaths, would you call it a failure? I don't know. Tell me in the comments. Is that a failure, or is it just pivoting, realizing there's an issue, and now finding a way to make that a little bit better? No one likes it when you've had a big plan and you've been excited, and then you kind of get a bop on the nose repeatedly daily, where you never get where you need to be. And yeah, it's a learning curve. It's a learning curve about the footpaths, never a failure. Thanks, Kate. That was lovely of you. All part of the journey. Yeah, there is an issue. There's an issue with the footpath. And actually, since I came home and mentioned it to a few people, other people have gone, "Oh my goodness, I couldn't do X, Y, Z. I couldn't get through this path." Oh, Layla, yeah. So my agent and well, I need to get back on the book thing. I had a really great idea about writing a guide for young people about resilience and motivation and overcoming adversity by using my story and a big trail as the backdrop narrative of that. It's a narrative guidebook really, where it was a story, but it was a place to add in their own experiences and brief themselves on how they could cope with stuff in real life in schools. Being a teacher of 20 years nearly, oh no, I'm looking really good for that. Maybe 18 years. That I know lots of the issues that young people face, and yeah, so that was the plan. And then I wasn't. That didn't quite it didn't grasp me in the way it had initially. I think probably because of all the things that were happening in my personal life, breakup, the ADHD diagnosis, the meds. But I think I might revisit that. But actually, I'm interested in writing another book about fiction, potentially. A book about fiction, a fiction book, but based on real life experiences. Definitely more writing. My agent's keen. My poor agent. I keep telling her I'm going to sort it out, and I haven't done it yet. But I loved writing that book, and I think there's more writing in me. I'm not sure I'm supposed to say this yet. I'm going to say it anyway, I'm sure I can say. I don't know. I've been invited to speak at the Do Lectures in July, which has literally blown my mind. I've couldn't imagine anywhere in the world that I'd want to speak out more. I don't think. So they only ever have 100 attendees. It's in Wales and 20 speakers, and they have thousands of people apply to come to the. It's like a festival. Do Lectures is 4 days on a farm with tents. Everybody cooks together. Everybody not cooks together. The food's all provided. It's glorious, super super gorgeous, rustic, but high end rustic, I guess you could call it. I don't know. I've never been. Looks like that. Big trestle tables outdoors where everybody eats together, all swim in the river together. So the speakers and the 100 attendees, if they all stay for the whole weekend, spend loads of time together. And there's 20 talks, and there's only one on at a time. So people will go and watch each talk, and some panels of chats with these people. And I am speaking, but one of the reasons I might not speak only about my long trail experience, etc., is because one of the other speakers is quite well known. And I can't believe I'm going to get to hang out with her for a whole weekend in such close proximity where everyone kind of becomes friends. There's a gin bar and a little dance area, but only 150 people. And that person wrote Wild and is Cheryl Strayed. So can't talk about the Appalachian Trail so much. So I'm talking about some other stuff. So that blows my mind that in a couple of months I will have the privilege of speaking to and listening to and hanging out with the woman who wrote Wild, which is pretty freaking amazing. And lots of other incredible speakers too who are going to be there. There was an application window for that for the application to go to that Do Lectures 2022, which closed last November. So now there soon will be a window open, I think, for the 2023 festival. But I don't think you can. I don't because no one can still get tickets. I don't think it's a problem that I said that. I'm probably going to get in trouble. But it's just so exciting. So that's the July thing. And then August, I'm still going to the MATC, the Maine Appalachian Trail Club in Maine. I fly into, I think, maybe Boston, take the bus up to Portland, Maine, get picked up by one of the trail leads, get taken into the woods, hike a long way into the woods, into the wilderness where I was at the beginning of my AT hike, where we sleep in hammocks or tents. There's even one place where they have a seaplane to take you out to. I mentioned this last time, basically doing trail maintenance for 2 weeks in 2 different places. So I'll transport between the two of them in the middle weekend, volunteering to go out and help repair the trail that I love with all of my heart. And Maine was the place I loved the most, in the 100-mile wilderness, the most out of my comfort zone, wild, free, filthy, rained on, dead phone for 10 days in the woods, never experienced anything like it. Pain, fear, gloriousness, views, bears, wild, just the most incredible feeling of elevating yourself to the next level of your life I've ever experienced was there in that first 2 weeks of the Appalachian Trail. So that's where I want to go back and pay back my thanks. I've applied for the last 2 years, and I was accepted, but cancelled COVID. So I'll be the project that I'll be working on is, I think I mentioned before, they carve in stone steps. They bring in stone from the mountainsides to make steps down really steep mountainsides in the 100-mile wilderness, with water drains dug in through the side. Makes it sound like it's really modern and fancy. It's really rustic. It's literally volunteers having hoists and taking blocks out of one, taking stones out of the side of one mountain, moving them along the side of the mountain, replacing them in the side of the other steps, and just making sure they're safe and in place. And I'll be taught how to do all of that and use all those hewing tools to help repair steps that I myself nearly tumbled down, I'm sure, in various rainstorms in Maine in the middle of the wilderness. So that will be an unbelievable privilege to be able to go back and work with those volunteer crews that I met so many times when hiking, sitting at the side of the trail, filthy, plastered in mud, broken fingernails, sweating, with their bug nets on and their full clothing, all volunteering. And I chatted with them all the way through the trail. Where are you from? What are you doing? Oh, we've come from Canada to volunteer, or I've come from Wisconsin to volunteer. I hiked the trail 15 years ago and always wanted to pay back. So I'll be one of those people, and I cannot wait to bring that to you. So that's where I'm at. I'm gonna go. Oh, bye, Elle. Thank you for coming. Kelly, I have every plan to come and see you in Seattle. I'm not quite sure how that works with the East Coast, but I will try my best because I love you, both of you, and I will come and stay. But also, Layla's just written, no romance, please. And I'd just like to flag, although he's not obviously watching this live, Buckshot from the book, if you've read the book, has been in touch quite a lot this week. Might try and go and see, in the last couple of weeks, might try and go and see Buckshot, to say a brief hi, no romance. Bill, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. You're in my bad books. Can you hear him barking? He's cross. He's been very well behaved, though, for 47 minutes. I know, Layla, I shouldn't go and see Buckshot, but, I probably won't. But I might go and see him for a quick hello while I'm on the East Coast, because he's hiking the Appalachian Trail for like the 3rd and a half time at the moment, northbound at the moment. I wish I could tell you his real name, but I'm probably not allowed to. Okay, so that was fun. Yeah, I was always like, oh no, what will I talk about? And it's 48 minutes and I have not breathed in. So thank you for being here. Bill, you're right. It's time to go. Justin, if you're still there, sorry, buddy. Thanks everyone. Love you millions. And yes, do you hear him? He's like, no, do not go and see Buckshot. Love you all millions. Share the retweet if you can. Say hi to me in my DMs on Instagram if you want to ask any questions. And come to the next live stream. I'm sure there'll be more chaos. Thank you so much for coming in. I feel super supported by you, and it really, really means a lot, because it's no small feat jumping on here by myself and with Bill to chat to you guys when I can't see you or hear you. So bye. Love you millions. Loads of love, everyone. Like and subscribe. Share the channel. Let's get me to 1,000 subscribers, and then YouTube will take me seriously. Love you lots.